Hi everyone, Dr. Shook here. In this video, what we're going to do is we're going to go through one of probably 6 patterns. I may have a few more that I'll share, but there are 6 primary patterns that I see in practice that result in people having low thyroid symptoms. Now, some of these patterns, like this pattern, is actually going to be due to low thyroid hormone levels. But most of the people that I see in practice don't have low thyroid hormone levels. They have a problem utilizing the hormone that is already in their bloodstream that they're either taking orally or that their body's making, resulting in them not feeling like they have enough thyroid hormone. But this is a pattern that is a common pattern, and I'm going to explain to you guys how this occurs, what this is. Okay, so primary hypothyroidism is where the thyroid itself cannot make enough T4 or T3. Okay, now these are your primary hormones. Okay, 93% is T4, 7% is T3. T3 is the most physiologically active hormone. Okay, it's the one that stimulates the cells and drives your metabolism. Now this is basically going to be where you don't have enough of these two. Now let's review just how the body gets to this point. Like, what does your body do to produce and manufacture these hormones? How do you actually get to this step where your thyroid makes these hormones? So it all starts in the brain. Remember, in the brain there's a central structure called the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus produces a hormone called thyroid releasing hormone, or TRH. TRH stimulates another brain structure called the pituitary gland. It sits right here. It's between the eyes. It's like a little bulb on a stalk, and it's called the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland releases thyroid stimulating hormone, or TSH. Now remember, that's the hormone that's commonly checked by your doctor. That's the most commonly checked hormone to screen for potential problems with thyroid production. Okay, and they use that as an indirect marker to try to give them a better idea of what's happening here with your thyroid hormones. And this is also often the hormone that is checked when they're trying to titrate or determine the appropriate dose of hormone for you. So what TSH does, TSH stimulates the thyroid. It stimulates enzymes inside the thyroid to go through this complex process to manufacture T4 and T3, which are released into the bloodstream. Okay? And then when these T4 and T3 levels, if they're too low, so if your T3 and T4 levels are low, what happens is your brain, the hypothalamus, is constantly monitoring the amount of T4 and T3 in the bloodstream. The brain is constantly saying, okay, how much is there? How much is there? And if the levels get low, okay, if the levels of T4 and T3 are low, then what happens is your brain is constantly monitoring that, and it will increase the production of TRH, and which will stimulate the pituitary gland to increase the amount of TSH, right? So it increases TSH, increases TRH, which should ramp up the ability of the thyroid to produce more T4 and T3. And then that should raise these levels, okay? So the levels should come up. Now this is a scenario where if these are low, the brain is monitoring those levels. If they're low, then the brain says, hey, we need more thyroid hormone, so make more thyroid releasing hormone. The thyroid releasing hormone stimulates the pituitary to produce more TSH, so TSH goes up. And when TSH goes up, remember, the job of TSH is thyroid stimulating hormone, is to stimulate the thyroid to produce more T4 and T3, right? So if this is all working properly, this feedback loop, when T4 and T3 go down, right, when they go down, the brain is going to produce more TRH, more TSH. So that's why when you get your TSH checked and your doctor's like, oh, TSH is high, you're hypothyroid, because they're thinking that the brain is trying to tell the gland to make more hormone, right? Because that's what the TSH in effect does, is it signals the thyroid to make more T4 and T3. So they just reason you don't have enough of these, it's low, so the brain's pumping out more of these hormones. Okay, so then they give you a replacement, and then they might check TSH again in a few weeks, few months, and see if it has come down, TSH has come down. And if it has, then in their mind, they've done their job and everything's balanced, because they're really looking at the brain signaling of the gland by looking at TSH, okay? So this is how it works. Now, if you have too much T4 and T3, right? If you have too much, like maybe in Graves' disease, or if you have a hot nodule that's overproducing, or if you're over medicated, which is something that it does happen quite often, and it's easy for someone to do that because they're trying to help you feel better. And if the only tool that they have is to give you more hormone, then they try to help you out. And because a lot of the markers that I'll order, which they're usually about 9 total, are not frequently checked because they're not considered medically necessary. Your doctors are trying to help you. They're not bad people, but because they're not medically necessary under an insurance panel, then what happens is they can't order them, or you have to pay cash for them, and there's a lot of complexities to that, which is a completely different video. So, but if these were high, right? So if these were high for maybe Graves, hot nodule, maybe you're taking too much medication. If these were high, then what's going to happen? It's going to be just the opposite, right? You're going to have, if these are high, the brain's monitoring and saying, whoa, thyroid hormone's high. I want to decrease the output of TRH, the thyroid releasing hormone, because I don't want the gland to make more. There's already enough. So I'm going to lower my TRH levels, thyroid releasing hormones. I'm going to drop TSH because I don't want any stimulation, which TSH is thyroid stimulating hormone. I don't want any stimulation of the gland because I've already got too much of this. So it suppresses this pathway. Higher levels of T4 and T3 decrease the stimulation of the brain to the thyroid. So that's where you'll see like TSH that's 0.012, or it's really the ideal ranges for TSH that we see that I see in practice. I typically want to see it somewhere between about 1.8 to about 2.5. But I mean, that's only the TSH. You got to look at the whole picture. But if I just had TSH, I'd say, well, if everything else is working properly, it's probably going to be 1.8 to about 2.5 under what the patients that I see and the distance clients that I work with. So if I see it below 1.8, then I'm thinking, okay, there's some suppression of this pathway. Why is it suppressed? Now, remember, like Graves, hot nodules where it overproduces hormone, over medication, when you get too much of this, will suppress this. The brain will monitor it and say, you know what, there's plenty of hormone, I'm not making any. And if that happens for a long period of time, you can actually suppress the output of these hormones, and you lose this feedback loop, and the brain no longer monitors the blood, and you can actually, that's where you really are on these thyroid hormones for life. And it's okay if you are. Thyroid hormone is vital to life. You do not want to be deficient in it. You have to have it. So it's like, it's when you're talking about like insulin to regulate blood sugar. You've got to have, every cell in the body requires thyroid hormones. So please, you need to take it. You need to take it, and it's going to help you live a good quality of life. Every cell has to have it. So keep that in mind. So okay, so now that I've explained a lot of the physiology, let's talk about a few other things. Okay. The other thing that I want to mention here is, so primary hypothyroidism is where the gland can't make enough of these. Okay. Now, this is where a thyroid hormone replacement is required to supplement T4 and T3. And there's a lot of different reasons the gland may not be able to have enough output, and that's pathological. But the most common reason of hypothyroidism is, what is it? You guys can tell me, I know. Hashimoto's. Hashimoto's is the most common cause of this. Now, what's happening? With Hashimoto's, inside the thyroid, your TPO, thyroid peroxidase, and possibly your thyroglobulin, which I'm just going to write TG, which sometimes it's written as TG, sometimes it's written as TGB, but it's thyroglobulin, it's a protein in there, and TPO is an enzyme in there. What they do is, these are typically the targets for the immune system, because remember, Hashimoto's is an autoimmune thyroid condition. It comes in, the cells destroy, the cells of your immune system destroy TPO and thyroid binding globulin, decreasing the thyroid's ability to make T4 and T3. So T4 and T3 go down as a result of this autoimmune process. So then these levels are low, and it requires, your doctor then gives you a supplement to try to bring these up. But what happens is, this is not a constant attack against the thyroid. These autoimmune conditions, it's not steady. It waxes and wanes. So it flares up, you destroy more of it at different times. When it flares up, you destroy more TPO and thyroid binding globulin, meaning that you have less T4 and T3. So your demand for thyroid hormone would go up. And then maybe the next week that calms down, and the next week you have normal capacity to make hormone, and your thyroid hormone, and your levels naturally come up. And so what happens is you're on this roller coaster of up and down with the thyroid hormones, which can cause you to have symptoms of hypo or low thyroid function and hyper, so anxiety, heart palpitations, a lot of other things, because you're on this roller coaster. And the doctor's trying to give you a thyroid hormone to kind of smooth it out. But the fact is that it's basically the roller coasters, the levels are this, right? But when they give you thyroid hormone, you just stack on top of that. And now it's like this, right? You typically have more peaks and valleys. Now sometimes every case is unique, and sometimes there's just not enough thyroid hormone and the person's constantly hypo or low. But here's my point with all this, right? This is if you have primary hypothyroidism for any reason, really other than Hashimoto's, it's something that's not treatable nutritionally or with diet, okay? I mean, typically it's not, okay? And something that requires thyroid hormone replacement. But if it's due to Hashimoto's, which in the U.S., what's the percentage of people that have primary hypothyroidism due to Hashimoto's? How many? About 90%. 90%. So 9 out of every 10 people that that have a thyroid problem have hypothyroidism because of Hashimoto's. And so this is what's happening. So what could you do? Well, Hashimoto's, in a lot of cases, you can improve it significantly with diet and nutrition, because what you do is you detect the drivers of the autoimmunity, the things that are promoting the autoimmune condition. Partially digested food proteins. You look at in chronic infections. You look at environmental chemicals. You look at cortisol elevations. These are all things that can promote this. And if you detect what's driving those, you remove those. Then you support the healing and improving the physiological functions that have been damaged due to this autoimmunity. And what you do is you decrease, or the goal is remission, but you decrease and dampen that autoimmune process so that you don't have as much destruction of the thyroid globulin and the TPO, and then the gland can have a more normalized output. Now, in a case like that, is there a possibility that you might not need your thyroid hormone? Possibly. If you dampen and improve the reason, which is an autoimmune process called Hashimoto's in 9 out of 10 people, if you can dampen it or quench that autoimmune process to the degree that they have the capacity to make enough hormone, do you need a hormone replacement? Well, maybe not, right? Maybe not. It just depends on your ability to dampen this. And so that's why, diet and nutrition and good testing to help figure out what's driving the process can be critical and can make a huge, huge difference. So this is primary hypothyroidism. And really, what I want to share with you guys is just that, primary hypothyroidism as a whole is caused by Hashimoto's. 9 out of 10 people have Hashimoto's that are hypothyroid. And if you dampen or work on the autoimmunity, which is Hashimoto's, you may be able to significantly improve your T4 and T3 production and this entire system here. So you may not have to take a medication long term. It just depends, but you have to work on the Hashimoto's first. Now, and there are a lot of cases where if Hashimoto's is progressed for a long period of time, it destroys the gland and the gland gets smaller and it decreases its capacity to make these hormones. So the longer that you have Hashimoto's, the less likely you are to have normal production because the gland gets destroyed, and then you're going to have to take something externally. The other thing is there's certain medications that can suppress thyroid output. There's other potential problems, but the majority of people it's due to Hashimoto's, and it's being ignored for the most part because your doctors don't have tools to address the autoimmunity because really, unfortunately, they don't understand this approach, and it's not because they're not intelligent enough to. They just have not been exposed to it. The system that they practice within does not allow them to practice this way. Because if you see, like I might see 4 people to 7 in a day, okay? The average primary care physician is going to see 40 to 50. When you have 7 minutes with someone, this is not a possibility. Discussing this, figuring this out, working with someone nutritionally, it changes your entire practice, and the insurance companies are not designed to reimburse around that, okay? So things need to change, but that's why we're teaching, right? That's because I'm going to help you help yourself, and we're going to figure out what we can do to help you take your health back, okay? Anyway, Dr. Shook, I want to explain primary hypothyroidism. This is video number 1, and then I'm going to go through several other patterns that will work off of this physiology, and I'll expand on it, okay? So I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you for hanging out with me.